Hi, I'm Deb Roberts, CEO of Embryo Connections, speaking with you today about the process for intended parents to receive embryos from donors. We know this process can be daunting, so we want to provide as much information about how it flows as possible so that you can feel comfortable from beginning to end. The first part of the process is to meet with one of our client care managers. But that is really important in order for us to be able to answer any questions that you have and make sure that we've understood you and what your needs are so that we can take the right steps forward. So first, I think providing a guideline on whom we accept in our program and why. We allow for all types of intended parents. We're all inclusive and we are national. So anybody can participate in our program as long as you really want to be a parent. And that is your choice. We do have a couple of limitations. The first is that you have been evaluated by a reproductive endocrinologist that you can carry a pregnancy. And that simply means that you have seen a reproductive endocrinologist for a uterine evaluation and that they have confirmed that you are a good candidate for this. You don't have to do this right away. You can certainly complete your paperwork with us and do that as you're waiting for embryos. The second is that you are 52 years or younger, or the combined age of 104 as a couple. We have that guideline for two reasons. One, it's an ASRM, American Society for Reproductive Medicine guideline, and also because we know that a lot of our donors feel more comfortable with an intended parent who is under the age of 52 because they themselves recognize how much work it is to be a parent and see themselves getting older. So we know that it's much easier for us to match somebody who is that age. And we also recognize that there is definitely a factor of parenting and aging that goes along with being older than that. The last is that we will do a criminal background check. This is not a home study. Embryo donation is not adoption, so we don't follow the adoption guidelines, but we do ask to do a criminal background check because it just provides confidence for everyone that this is a safe donation. So those are really our three initial requirements. And when you're speaking with your client care manager, you'll be talking about a few things. One is how we match. So in this process, you're going to tell us what your criteria are. We believe in informed choice. So we want you to pick the right donor for you. And there are some considerations for that. One is that we donate in batches of 2 or more. Generally, the batches are between 2 and 5 embryos, which allows you the chance to have as many children as you want in your family. And a failure, at least, because we know that not every embryo results in a live birth. Our success rate for live birth is about 50%. It's a little bit above that. So we want to make sure that you have at least 2 embryos if you want to have 1 child. And we allow for generally up to 5 embryos. And after that, we're going to start splitting those batches of embryos so that one donor can donate to multiple families while still allowing every intended parent to have as many kids as they would like to have. All of the batches of embryos are different. It's really driven by what that donor provides to us. So many of our donations are in the 2 to 4 embryo space. And that means that somebody who wants 1 child is more likely to get batches of embryos that have 2 to 3 embryos. And if you would like to have 2 to 3 children, we're going to try to pair you with somebody who has 4 or 5 embryos. And because we have less of the 4 or 5 embryos, if you would like to have only 1 child, it makes sense to say that you only want 1 child so that you get those batches of 2 much sooner. If you say that you want to have 3 to 4 children, we're going to be waiting till we find a good batch of embryos that has enough for you to have those 2 to 3 children or 3 to 4 children within the same batch of embryos. So the second consideration is interaction. And I have another video on interaction. I think it's worth watching. We want to align you so that both intended parent and donor have the same expectations for interaction long-term. And the last is mutual criteria. So that whatever criteria that you provide, the donor reflects, and vice versa. The donor's also going to have criteria. So we're going to be matching you on both of those. What we ask is that you complete a profile. It's pretty comprehensive. It's almost like you're becoming an egg donor or sperm donor, because we want to learn as much about you as we can. So if you've ever seen those profiles, you'll see that they have education, hobbies, interests, what makes you tick politically and socially, what your favorite foods are and favorite movies. This is to provide context so that families can feel comfortable with one another. So you're going to put that together, and as part of your profile, you're going to tell us what are your criteria. Criteria can be anything from physical characteristics, geography, values, whatever is important to you. Note that the more criteria you place, the harder it is going to be for us to match you, and that is simply statistics. The most common question is, I would like to have a girl, right? If somebody says that they want to have a girl, note that the first thing that we have to do is screen out all the people who have tested embryos, because that's the only way we can know if they're a girl. Then we're looking for batches of at least 2 girls that we can offer you that don't also have a boy with them, because if you don't want a boy, we don't want to give you a boy. And the donor is generally going to be interested to see that you want to use all of the embryos that they're offering. So we're now looking for a pair of girls. So that narrows it down pretty quickly, so that if you add additional criteria to that, it might be really hard to match you. So just keep that in mind. We definitely get tested embryos and untested. That's always the question. Do we get tested? What tested means is, are they chromosomally normal? That means that they have 23 pairs of chromosomes. When we do know if they have 23 pairs of chromosomes, it also means that we know the sex. We're going to not share the sex with you unless you want to know, but that's simply what it means. So we encourage you to consider all of your options. So when it comes to matching, tested is not the end-all be-all. We have seen a lot of research recently that testing does not necessarily improve outcomes for those particularly who use donor egg, because an egg donor has about a 75% euploid rate, meaning chromosomally normal. So those embryos untested are actually just as good as the embryos that are tested. And that holds for anybody who is creating embryos at a young age. And we definitely have donors who have created embryos at a young age for various reasons. Maybe they had a tube blockage or other things that were preventing them from pregnancy that were unrelated to the quality of their embryos. But like I said, your criteria can be anything. So whatever is important to you, we want to make sure that you consider. Please do let us know if you're okay with donor egg and donor sperm. We get a lot of donors who have used donor egg or donor sperm because they are donating because they were given a gift and want to pass that gift along. They're very grateful to their egg donor or sperm donor to create their own family, and they know how hard it is. And so they want to pass along. And to note, those who have used a donor gamete generally have good embryos because they were created with a donor egg and or donor sperm. So the next part of the process is, so you submit your profile, then we're going to, we'll check it with you and we'll make sure that it looks good. We're also going to ask you to sign an intended parent services agreement. This is not a commitment to receive embryos from us. You are welcome to find embryos elsewhere. You can find embryos on Facebook. There are definitely support groups for that. If you do and you want us to support the logistics, we're happy to do that. We about 10% of our business actually is known donations that just need help getting through the logistics, which I'll talk about next. So you're signing that services agreement simply to say, here's what the process is. And it's about a 6 to 8 page document that tells you everything that I'm communicating right now, plus a little bit extra. So you have that as a handbook, essentially, for how the donation process works. We'll also provide you with a checklist so that you can see what all of the steps are. We're going to ask you to do that criminal background check that we talked about. It is online. It goes back about 7 years so that we can assess your criminal history. You will complete that yourself. We'll send you the link and you'll complete that yourself and can definitely give you the results of that if you're interested. And finally, we're going to send you an invoice for our onboarding. It's a very small invoice and it's simply to acknowledge that we are getting you started in the process and that you're committed to working with us for receiving embryos to some degree. Like I said, you can find your embryos anywhere. We're not committing you to work with us. So then you start your wait. And to note, your wait begins when you submit your profile. So you're going to be submitting your profile online, and that date stamp is going to acknowledge when we start your wait. We do encourage you to be thorough about your profile when you complete it, because we don't want to have to go back and redo it for you. So we ask that you think through the questions, but that the sooner you submit it to us, the faster you're on the wait list. It is not when you pay your invoice or get your criminal background check done, because we batch those and we usually send them about 2 weeks after we receive your profile. The wait can be anywhere from 6 to 10 months or more. So be prepared to be waiting to start receiving profiles. The reason for that is that we have more intended parents than we have donors, and it takes us a long time to get a donor ready to donate. So there are many steps in their process. And so we want to make sure that they're really all ready to go by the time we send you profiles. We're going to be sending profiles to about 4 intended parents at a time. And you'll review those profiles. Please make sure that you add Embryo Connections to your safe list, because we're going to BCC you on that email. So I want to make sure that it gets to you. When you see that email, take a look at it. You got about 5 days to let us know if you're interested in that donor. If you're interested in that donor, send a message that says, yes, I am. If you're not, please also let us know so that we know that you're engaged and you're receiving those emails. So respond that you're interested. And what interested means is, I would like my profile sent to the donor so that the donor can review and get comfortable with me as a recipient. They're going to be seeing, if I send to 4 intended parents at a time and get responses, I expect to be sending about 1 to 3 intended parent profiles to a donor. The donor is going to review that profile or profiles and choose an intended parent that they feel best meets their criteria. Sometimes they're only seeing 1. And so they'll say, yeah, you as an intended parent look good to us. And we move to the next step. Here's where the process diverges a little bit. If you've chosen low engagement or high engagement open, we're going to set up a Zoom meeting so that you can get to know them. This is really a date. It's to talk about what your mutual interests are, get comfortable with one another, and you'll talk about your long-term expectations for interaction. If you've chosen donor ID disclosure or semi-open, you will not have a meeting with the donor. You'll be able to answer questions through a client care manager. You can exchange Q&A that way, but that you will then simply move to the next stage without that meeting. At that step, when it's time to either have the meeting with the donor says, yes, they like your profile, we will schedule a meeting with you to review the details of that profile, make sure that you're comfortable with the embryos. We'll talk about the grading, the success history, their health history, FDA screening, interaction preferences, disposition, and then we'll also talk about next steps. So that's a meeting that we'll schedule after we know that there's initial interest from both the intended parent and the donor. When you officially say, yes, I like this donor, and you either move to the meeting and the meeting goes well. By the way, most of our meetings go well, so you don't have to be too nervous about them, but just be prepared to have a good conversation with them, to have thoughts about who they are as people, that you can ask them about their hobbies, you can talk about yours. But generally those meetings go very well and they really form a bond. It makes it easier for us to move forward to the next steps because everybody knows who's on the other side and they like each other, so they want to move forward. So after that meeting, both families say, yes, we want to move forward. And we then seek your clinic's approval of the embryos. So we send an embryo suitability and eligibility report to your physician, embryologist, and donor coordinator, so that they can approve the embryos. That's the final step in the approval process. While that's going on, we will ask you to go to an embryo donation counseling session. It's psychoeducational, it's for your benefit. But we will refer the counselors to you, so you don't have to find your own counselor. We just want to find a counselor who is trained in third-party reproductive medicine, and that's why we refer the counselors to you. We also have a network, so we've negotiated with rates with those counselors. They know how we work, so it's very nice when we use our own list, but we're also happy if you have one you'd like to use that we use that, because that just helps us build our network. So I'm happy to do that. So if you you'll get that counselor list, you'll contact your counselor and let us know who you're seeing so that we can send an intake to you and to them about what that counseling session is about. The donors also go through a similar counseling session, and we will then send a legal intake to the counselor. So the attorneys, to the donor, so that the donor gets comfortable with what goes into the legal agreement. It's pre-populated, so it's just for them to check off and make sure it all looks good and add any edits. We'll then send it to you so that you can get aligned. We'll refer donors to we'll refer attorneys to the donor and to you. The donor's attorney drafts and your attorney reviews. So we will send the legal intake to both the donor and the intended parent attorney as soon as we get that clinic approval and the first invoice is paid. And we'll talk about the invoicing process in a bit. Then we shepherd that legal process through, make sure everything goes well. If there are any hiccups during the legal agreement, we really encourage you to reach out to your client care manager so that we can address it directly and make sure that everything goes smoothly. When that's done, we will then coordinate the shipment from the donor's clinic to your clinic so that you can schedule your transfer. We ask that you not schedule your transfer until the legal agreement is signed, because it can take us about 3 weeks to schedule that transfer between the two clinics. And we certainly don't want you to have a date that we can't meet because we haven't been able to ship the embryos. It really only takes overnight to ship them, but sometimes clinics are busy. It's a holiday, so we just want to make sure that we leave enough time for that. The process from the time that you match until the embryos are at your clinic can be about 4 months. It seems lengthy, but it can go a lot faster than that if everybody is moving at speed. It generally takes that long for scheduling counseling sessions, scheduling with attorneys, like I said, scheduling that relocation of the embryos. So that takes about 4 months. But once you have those embryos in your clinic, you can transfer on your timeline. So that could be right away, or if you need to schedule procedures or need to wait for whatever personal reasons, you are welcome to have your transfer at whatever time is right for you. It costs between $9,000 and $11,000 for an embryo donation, including everything that we've discussed. That includes our process, your counselor and attorney, the donor's counselor and attorney, FDA screening, legal, shipping. All of that is included in that $9,000 to $11,000. We're going to give you an expenses tracker. As soon as your donation matches, as soon as you know who your donor is, we'll send you a much more detailed expenses outline so that you know in general a little bit tighter how much your overall donation will cost. The payment structure is that you're going to pay us after we get your clinic approval. So we want to make sure that you know who your donor is and that the clinic has said yes. We'll send you the bulk of our expenses at that time. We will then send you, you'll get the counseling invoices and your attorney invoices. You'll pay those directly. And then you'll get a final invoice from us, which contains reimbursements to the donor, generally their storage from the time that they started donating with us, which is less than a year. So we'll send you that last invoice and then coordinate the shipment. And at that point, you get to schedule your transfer and start your family. So thank you for listening. I know this is a long process and it can be tedious and it's painful for the wait. We are trying to make the wait as little as we can. Some considerations for wait are less criteria, particularly not that PGS tested girl. If that's what you want, you are welcome to wait for it. It can take up to a year or more for if you're exclusively looking for that girl. So just keep that in mind. Other criteria are just, you can specify the must-haves versus the nice-to-have. That makes it easier for us to match with you. And sometimes we find a match right away and can match you within a couple weeks. Those are very special circumstances, but it does definitely happen all the time. So thank you again for listening, and I look forward to working with you on your donation.